What's up everyone, it's ENDYMION, and what a year this has been. With so many stories covered here on this channel, I thought I was done for the year, but now there is of course more. Also, if I sound a little weird, it's cause I have a head cold, but the grind never stops. So we keep moving, fellas. I got some Star Wars Acolyte insider info, as well as the X-Men being destroyed by one of the wokest people in the business, and a veteran comic book writer just blasting his former employers for being morons. And I'll finish the video with some SheHulk news that proves Disney has learned nothing from their failures. Anyway, let's get into it. To start, let's look at Star Wars, which has been drowning in apathy for years now. The series has been driven into the pavement harder than Gwen Stacy's head, and that's putting it lightly. But YouTuber WDW Pro had some interesting insider information revealed recently that coincides with this article titled, "New rumor for Leslie Headland's upcoming Star Wars series, The Acolyte, provides major details about Amandla Stenberg and Manny Jacinto's characters." This latest rumor comes courtesy of Daniel Richtman, who's leaked way too many things already, but according to him, The Acolyte's core story beats have been leaked. So Amandla Stenberg, who's this lady in the middle, will play the main character in this series. Because if there's anything Star Wars needs right now, it's another female-led ensemble cast, because it's not like we had enough of those already. Anyway, Stenberg will apparently play not one, but two characters in this show. She's actually playing twin sisters who've been each taken by both sides of the Force. But the main character in this show anyway will apparently be the Sith twin. And according to Pro, Disney has a raging hard-on for years now for another show called Arcane, which I watched when it came out. It's based on League of Legends, and yes, you should definitely watch it. Because not only is the animation just some of the best I think I've ever seen, but it was genuinely an incredible show. And as for someone whose only exposure to League of Legends has been some spin-off games that I've completed, I thought Arcane was amazing. Anyway, Disney's higher-ups apparently are extremely jealous of Riot Games and Netflix's show, and they've been trying to emulate that level of success for a while now, according to Pro. And he said that this Acolyte show is heavily influenced by Arcane, like to the point that this show might as well as be called Star Wars Arcane. Disney is trying to turn Stenberg's Sith twin into the Jinx of Star Wars, is what I'm hearing. They want their own mentally unhinged killer character that is beloved by fans while also being very evil. And I mean, if Disney wanted unhinged weirdos, they could just hire anyone they find outside their studios, since LA is full of them, but I digress. So not only is The Acolyte going to be Arcane meets Star Wars, apparently there's another actor in the show who will also play two characters. That actor is Manny Jacinto. There's no word if Manny is also playing twins as well, which would honestly be ridiculous to have two pairs of twins. But maybe he's just schizophrenic and can swap his personalities and each side adheres to a different side of the Force. Which I don't know about you, but that concept doesn't really make sense to me, cause doesn't the dark side corrupt you fully? And what, this guy just swaps it on a whim? It's almost as if the creators of this don't understand the fundamental rules of Star Wars or something. And speaking of creators, The Acolyte's Leslie Headland spoke on the show too. The self-proclaimed queer creator said her show will be very evil-focused and will also be set during the High Republic era, which, in case you don't know, is considered one of the least interesting eras of Star Wars history. And many fans have rejected pretty much any mention or stories that come around that time. Mostly because it's a fertile watering ground for woke weirdos to do stupid stuff, and also because there isn't really any big wars going on during this time. So it's a weird time period in a series where wars is in its title. Anyway, Leslie Headland said, and I quote, "We are looking at a timeline where there is peace throughout the galaxy, and it was very challenging and interesting to make a Star Wars with no war in it. So the question became, well, what should the show be about if it's not going to be about galactic conflict? And I think that's what makes this show different and interesting, is that it's from the perspective of the bad guys or the villains of Star Wars. These are people who are using the Force in their own way, dipping into the darker sides of the Force, and are doing it without being sanctioned by the larger institution, which in this case is the Jedi. I think that Star Wars is always about some version of the underdog versus the institution, and I just thought it was very interesting to do a show about the bad guys, and to set that during that time period made the most sense. So I think that's what sets it apart. It's kind of almost flipped. We have more Jedi than you've seen in any of the Star Wars content. But at the same time, I think you see more morally ambiguous characters than you've seen in other Star Wars content as well. And I think I can say this pretty confidently, I don't think you're going to see action in other shows the way you see it used and utilized in our show." End quote. As anything else Star Wars related, I am not remotely hyped whatsoever for this, and my apathy for this series has reached new levels of low. I have no faith in Disney to turn the ship around, but I can't lie, I am looking forward to seeing how they ruin this more in the future, because if anyone can do it, it's Disney. Then we have this other story from Bounding Into Comics titled, "Marvel Comics exec Tom Brevoort pushes back after fans hope new X-Men event ditches ideology-driven storytelling, claims team is rooted in the message." Let's put it this way, if you hate anything going on with Marvel Comics right now, it's very likely those ideas were signed off and approved by Tom Brevoort, since he kinda has the final say on what gets made. This is a guy who is not only criminally overpaid, but is so woke it's painful. And he has assured fans that the X-Men, in terms of comics anyway, will always be pandering and identity politically driven. Because in his mind, that's what they've always been. Except not really at all, and Tom proves he doesn't know what he's talking about, which isn't a surprise considering how poorly he's running Marvel Comics anyway. Marvel revealed they're relaunching the X-Men series across the board again, which if you ever wonder why comics get relaunched so often, it's cause they don't sell and nobody cares about them. Anyway, fans are pissed cause the X-Men have been shitting the bed and rolling in the sheets for years now, due to these morons in control. One Twitter user named Thor Odinson said, "Unless you retcon the past 10-20 years of X-Men canonical history so none of it ever happened, or reveal they were all damaged Sinister clones the whole time while the real X-Men were in stasis, it's all pointless. The damage goes back way before the terrible Krakoa era, so short of a massive retcon, you're effectively broken these characters for good, congratulations." Another Twitter user chimed in with an equally great username in Count Shockula, who said, "Unless Marvel cleans house, ridding themselves of the current writers, majority of artists and editors, it will be nothing but a countdown to more failure. The industry hasn't admitted the problem yet. Until then, nothing will change." To which Tommy Wokey Bing Bong Boy replied to the hate with, "Well, this X-Men graphic sure brought people out in force. One reminder that I thought wouldn't be necessary, express whatever opinion you like, but if you show up with homophobia or bigotry or hate speak of any sort, it'll be an instant block." To which a fan replied, "How about you tell a good story and stop shoving the message down our throats?" To which Tommy replied, "It's X-Men, the message is the premise." Ah, how wrong you are. The X-Men are actually just a group of superheroes that were, believe it or not, born out of the laziness of Stan Lee. In 2004, Stan Lee was interviewed and he said, and I quote, "Well, there's a funny story. Everything is a funny story. After I had done the Fantastic Four, the Hulk, Spider-Man, I think the X-Men came next. The X-Men and one other. I think Daredevil. They're about the same time. Anyway, I wanted to do another group of superheroes, but I was getting tired now of figuring out how they get their superpowers. I couldn't have everybody bitten by a radioactive spider or exposed to a gamma ray explosion. And I took the cowardly way out. I said to myself, why don't I just say they're mutants? They were born that way. We all know there are mutants in real life. There's a frog with 5 legs, things like that. So I won't have to think of new excuses. I'll get as many as I want and yeah, he's a mutant, that's all." End quote. And there you go, that's how your beloved X-Men were born, dear viewer. Stan Lee got lazy one day and said, "I ain't got time to explain why these people can do what they do," and he found the most convenient cop-out of all time, and voila, the mutant X gene was born. Honestly, it's a genius idea, and he's right, it saved him hours of his life trying to come up with unique reasons why people can do what they can. So when Tom tells you that the X-Men's identity is the message, I just want you to know that he's lying to you, and he has no idea what he's talking about. Frankly, when it comes to comics, or really most things that are beloved, the reason why people like them is because they're simple. Spider-Man is cool because he's simple, his outfit is clean and nice to look at, his origins make sense. The same thing with characters like Batman. You just understand it, there's no need to really make it more complicated than it is. And who are you gonna believe? The actual creator of the X-Men or some guy who's been driving these characters into their early graves for years now? You know what else I noticed? How a lot of the Marvel shenanigans that have been going on these past few years coincidentally started to happen right around when Stan Lee finally passed away. I'm not saying he had omnipotent control over his creation, since he didn't, he worked for Marvel and didn't own it, But it's very interesting how the movies especially suddenly went to shit right around when he died. In my own conspiracy theory way, I feel as if Disney waited for Stan Lee to kick the bucket and join Uncle Ben before they started to really ruin his legacy in every facet imaginable. But what's happening with the X-Men is not unique, since we've seen it happen aplenty where works are taken and co-opted by others to fit new ideas or agendas. And it almost never works, and like I said, it's because these things work because they're simple. And then these other people who don't have a creative bone in their body take these simple, genius concepts and then they overcomplicate and ruin them and morph them into something else. You could fit that analogy to fit anything that sucks today and it would work. Pretty much whenever someone talks about why something isn't good anymore, it's usually almost 100% of the time because of something modern that was added to it. You ain't gonna hear anybody say, well, Spider-Man never needed the Uncle Ben hook or the radioactive spider is lame. Instead, any problem with Peter today is because of modern nonsense, like sidelining him in his own games or doing stupid shit like giving Mary Jane a different husband. Or turning Mary Jane into a superhero called Jackpot, which just looks horrendous. Like, come on, what even is this? And another comic book legend agrees with the fans, with Chuck Dixon throwing his hat in the ring when it comes to modern day Disney and media in general. Chuck Dixon was on the Bounding Into Comics show Escape the Future, and he just says it how it is, and I quote, I mean, comics aren't the only thing suffering, and we're seeing that across the board. I mean, the streaming services, movie attendance, television series, everything else is falling apart because they're not aiming it at an audience that actually wants to see it. Look what Disney did. They spent $8 billion to get two male-oriented franchises and immediately turned them into girly stories. Disney's already got their princess line. Why do you need to take characters that are typically male-centric or things that boys like and turn them into princesses? I don't understand this at all. It's like it was the only thing they knew how to do, but their stated intent, I remember reading about this extensively when they bought Marvel and Lucasfilm, was that they needed material for boys. They didn't have anything for boys in their library, and then they screwed both of them up in the worst possible ways you can imagine. It's amazing how bad they've been at this, end quote. Actually, what Chuck said there made me realize something I didn't see before. He's right that prior to owning Marvel and Star Wars, Disney was technically very female-oriented in their media. Think about it, beautiful princesses falling in love with handsome men, being saved from poverty or the darkness of society, and being raised up to live as royalty. What Chuck says here paints Disney in a new light for me. He's right when he says it's like it was the only thing Disney knew how to do. They've been so entrenched into catering to women that when given a male-dominated property, they didn't treat it differently, but instead injected what they were known for, what they knew sold well, at least with women, and then used that to transform something made for men. And that actually perfectly explains what's going on right now across the board. They've simply taken something male-dominated, stripped it of its audience, and forced it to adhere to what they're known for, and it's not working clearly, but it makes sense as to why they do it. It's the same thing with The Acolyte. It's another female-dominated led Star Wars thing again. But when you take a forensic lens to what Disney has done with Star Wars since they bought it, they've simply Disney princessed the crap out of it because that's what they know. Huh, well, alright then. Damn. Chuck Dixon just opened my eyes to a whole other viewpoint here. Very interesting, and I mean, he's right. It doesn't clear Disney of any wrongdoing, mind you, but it at least explains it very well to me anyway. Nothing Disney has done has worked, and it's the epitome of trying to fit a square peg in a round hole. They're simply pandering to the wrong crowd with this sort of thing. And like I said previously, if you want your products to welcome and incentivize both men and women, it turns out they both want the same thing really, with a little variation of course. Men want strong, competent male characters. They don't want to see a dopey idiot who stands by while girls do the fighting. And women want to see strong male characters that are also nice to look at. I mean, if this wasn't true, then the last 100 years of cinema and entertainment then is a lie and it's all a fluke. But the reality is, whenever you go to any store, what do they use to promote things? Attractive people of both genders promoting products. As they say, sex sells. And what's happening with a lot of media today is they're taking out the strong, competent men and replacing them with borderline villain-coded women instead. And this ends up being for nobody, and it shows. What Chuck said here is so true it's crazy. But he's right, and it's clear they're not listening since She-Hulk Season 2 is apparently still happening. And according to rumors, the second season will star both She-Hulk and Betty Ross in a buddy cop dynamic according to sources. One leaker states it'll come out in 2025 and will be very female-centric. And then the leaker follows it up with a tweet teasing Red She-Hulk, who Betty Ross does become at one point. Because, Like every other popular superhero, the well dries almost immediately. And all these comics can do is take what's popular, change the color of something, and go, voila, here's a new character that is totally not lazy. I hate it here. And they go on to explain that General Thunderbolt Ross becomes Red Hulk, and it's all due to him seeking a cure for his heart condition. So we're going from just the Hulk being his own unique character to an entire ensemble cast of Hulk-like variants. If that doesn't dilute the brand even more, I don't know what will. But it's crazy to me that by 2025, we're still going to be seeing these female-centric misfires happening, which confirms to me anyway that 2023 was not a fluke, but will become the norm for places like Disney going forward when it comes to how they approach content. How much money do these people need to lose before they realize we don't want it? Betty Ross as Red She-Hulk? Really? Does this agenda know any bounds? How often do people need to decry that the MCU is a dumpster fire and that we don't want these female-centric things? Well, like Chuck Dixon said, maybe it's because it's all they know how to do anyway. Whether it's Star Wars or Marvel, Disney is just reverting to what they know works for their female brands, and refusing to listen when it comes to their male-dominated ones. The agenda knows no bounds or any signs of stopping, but hey, if we taught them this with the Marvel's box office failure, we can do it as many times as needed, can't we? Disney wants to go Super Saiyan the Marvels 2.0 on the fanbase. I say let it happen. The only people losing in this scenario are Disney themselves, but as for now, that's what I got for you. Let me know what you think in the comments below. And I just wanted to take a second here to say thank you to everyone who watched anything I made in 2023. You guys seriously changed my life, and I can never thank you enough. All I can do is try to live up to expectations and ensure that I maintain my quality no matter what. My life has been changed, and I am genuinely living my dream doing this. I was afraid of doing YouTube for so long. I would have dreams where I would imagine, what if I pursued this path? But I was always too afraid to do it. What if I failed? But I took a leap, and now look at where I am now. I'm almost at 200,000 subscribers, which is genuinely incredible, and I am so thankful, so thank you. I know I sometimes get things wrong, but please keep me accountable and just know I'm nothing without my audience. So from the bottom of my cold, cynical heart, I truly am so thankful, and I'll never take it for granted. Okay, I think that's enough sappiness, but seriously, thank you. Like, subscribe, and share the video if you enjoyed it, and thanks to my patrons as always. Have a wonderful day, Happy New Year, and thanks for an amazing 2023. I'll see you in 2024. Oh God, I hate being sick.